The night Scott's pager shattered the silence at 2:17 a.m. He was sitting on the kitchen floor with his back against the cabinet, his 5-year-old daughter Sarah asleep in his lap. Her tiny fingers were twisted into his blue scrubs, as if even in dreams she was afraid the world might take him away. Scott was a respected trauma surgeon's steady hands, sharp instincts, a man who could stop bleeding hearts under blinding surgical lights, but at home, he was simply a father trying to hold his own heart together. 3 years earlier, he had lost his wife to a sudden illness, and ever since, every ounce of strength he possessed belonged to Sarah. He memorized the sound of her laughter, the way she mispronounced certain words, the way she whispered "Good-night, Daddy," like it was a sacred promise. When his pager went off that night, he carefully lifted her and laid her on the couch, brushing her hair from her forehead. "I'll be back before you wake up," he whispered, even though emergencies had no guarantees. What he didn't know was that this shift would change their lives forever. Across town, on a Sinclair Saturday in the emergency waiting room, her usual confidence stripped away. As the CEO of a powerful multinational tech company, she was used to commanding respect. She negotiated billion-dollar deals without flinching and ran a corporation that shaped industries. But none of them mattered as she waited for news about her younger brother, who had been rushed in after a devastating accident. Her tailored suit and composed posture couldn't hide the tremble in her hands. For the first time in years, Anna felt small. When Scott entered the trauma bay, his exhaustion disappeared behind calm authority. He worked with relentless focus, issuing instructions, making swift decisions, refusing to surrender even when the situation was critical. Hours passed, machines beeped, nurses moved quickly, and through it all, Scott remained steady and cold, not distant, but deeply human. When he finally approached Anna with an update, he didn't speak to her like a CEO, he spoke to her like a sister terrified of losing someone she loved. "He's stable," Scott said gently. "It was close, but he's fighting and so are we." The relief broke Anna. Her knees nearly gave out, and Scott instinctively steadied her. Their eyes met, not as powerful figures, not as strangers, but as to people who understood responsibility and fear. And that quiet connection lingered long after the crisis passed. In the weeks that followed, Anna found reasons to return. Officially, it was to check on her brother's recovery. Unofficially, it was to see Scott. One afternoon, she spotted him kneeling beside a frightened little girl in pediatrics, explaining a procedure by comparing it to fixing a superhero's shield. His voice was animated, warm, patient. The child smiled through tears. Anna felt something shift inside her. This man carried grief, exhaustion, and endless pressure, yet he led with kindness. Eventually, Scott invited her for coffee in the hospital cafeteria. Their conversations unfolded naturally. Anna confessed that she had built her empire by never letting emotions interface with logic. Scott admitted that losing his wife taught him how fragile time truly was. "Success," he said quietly, "meant nothing if you came home to silence." The real turning point came the day Anna met Sarah. It was a sunny Saturday at a small neighborhood park. Sarah stood close to her father at first, studying Anna with cautious curiosity. Anna, dressed far more casually than usual, knelt down without hesitation. "Hi, Sarah, your dad says you're the bravest girl he knows." Sarah tilted her head. "He says that when I get shots." Anna smiled. "Well, I think it counts everywhere." Within minutes, they were talking about cartoons and favorite colors. When Sarah's ice cream started melting, Anna laughed and helped clean the sticky mess, completely unbothered by grass stains on her jeans. Scott watched in quiet disbelief. Anna wasn't performing. She wasn't impressing. She was simply present. Love didn't explode into their lives as it grew gently, rooted in shared respect. Anna began rearranging high-level meetings to attend Sarah's school recital. Scott found himself smiling at his phone after long hospital shifts when Anna sent simple messages asking how his day was. But doubt crept in. Anna's board members questioned her distractions. Headlines speculated about the CEO dating a widowed doctor. Scott feared exposing Sarah to another loss if Anna's world pulled her away. One evening, standing outside his modest home, Scott voiced his fear. "I can survive heartbreak," he said quietly, "but Sarah, she can't lose another mother figure." His voice trembled not from weakness, but from love. Anna went home and stared at the skyline from her penthouse office. She had conquered industries, but vulnerability terrified her. The next morning, in a high-stakes meeting, she did something no one expected. She delegated power, not because she was incapable, but because she finally understood that real strength meant choosing what truly mattered. That evening, Anna stood at Scott's doorstep as a CEO, not as a public figure but as a woman in love. She knelt in front of Sarah and spoke softly. I'm not here to replace anyone. I'm here to care about you and your dad. And if you let me, I'm not going anywhere. Sarah studied her seriously before asking, will you still come even when Daddy is busy at the hospital? Anna's eyes filled with tears, especially then. And in that moment, Scott realized kindness had built something even ambition never could. Months later, the hospital hosted a grand charity gala, co-sponsored by Anna's company, to fund surgeries for underprivileged children. The ballroom shimmered with lights, but the brightest presence in the room was Sarah, proudly holding her father's hand. Scott stood tall in his tuxedo, still slightly uncomfortable in the spotlight. Anna, radiant yet composed, took the stage. Instead of speaking about business achievements, she spoke about compassion, about witnessing a single doctor fight tirelessly for strangers, about seeing a father balance grief and devotion with unwavering strength. I used to measure success in numbers, Anna said, her voice steady but emotional. Now I measure it in impact and in love. She announced the launch of a new foundation, the Sarah Hope Initiative, dedicated to supporting single parents facing medical crises. The room erupted in applause. Scott's breath caught. No award, no recognition had ever touched him so deeply. Then came the twist. Scott gently guided Sarah to stand beside Anna before stepping forward. With quiet sincerity, he lowered himself onto one knee. The room fell silent. You walked into our lives when we were surviving, he said softly, and you taught us how to live again. You didn't just love me, you chose my daughter. That's the kind of love I trust forever. Sarah grinned mischievously. Say yes, Anna. Laughter filled the ballroom as Anna uncovered her mouth, tears slipping down her cheeks. Yes, she whispered, then louder. Yes. Applause thundered, but none of it mattered, compared to the way Sarah wrapped her arms around both of them. In the months that followed, Anna didn't abandon her empire, she restructured it. She built leaders around her, so she could build a family at home. Scott continued saving lives, but now he returned to a house filled with warmth instead of silence. On a quiet Sunday morning, sunlight poured into their kitchen. Sarah Saturday between them at breakfast, animatedly describing her school project. Anna flipped pancakes while Scott teased her about burning them. It wasn't glamorous. It wasn't headline-worthy, but it was real. Scott realized the greatest miracle he'd ever witnessed wasn't in an operating room. It was the way Anna chose love without hesitation. And Anna understood that the most powerful decision she'd ever made wasn't closing a billion-dollar deal. It was opening her heart to a man and his daughter. As Sarah laughed between them, their hands intertwined across the table, one truth became undeniable. This wasn't just a happy ending. It was the beginning of a forever built on kindness, courage, and a love strong enough to heal them all.